must use stealth and cunning to infiltrate the human world and retrieve Go-Gurt.
Okay, Batman.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Not only are we going to be breaking down this movie, but we're also going to be taking a closer look at the secret alien villain that was hiding in plain sight. That awesome post-credit scene teasing the Turtles' next big shell-cracking baddie. Plus, the heartwarming coming-of-age story that's at the core of this film.
Take out super fun, and then everyone will think we're cool. They'll accept us.
What makes this version of TMNT so unique is that they really focused on the teenage aspect of these characters. By casting actual teenagers to play the Turtles and allowing the actors to riff off one another, you really get the genuine childlike nature of these four brothers. You can feel their innocence and naivete. You can even feel their longing to not only fit in and be part of the bigger world, but to find out who they really are and what their purpose is. A struggle that we can all relate to because we've all been teenagers.
I haven't, I'm only 3.
Yeah, but that's like 30 in manager years.
That's right, I am 30 years old.
So the animation of this movie is stellar, and it's being compared to Across the Spider-Verse films, even though they have totally different conceits. Production designer Yashar Cassie revealed to Inverse that since the movie was about teenagers, they wanted to draw it like they themselves were teenagers. Yashar said, "We infused every aspect of the movie with teenage energy. This wasn't easy. Trying to draw like teenagers meant drawing like someone in their first art class ever, or who's doodling in the corner of their yearbook." And director Jeff Rowe told MovieWeb, "We really commit and take these big swings toward ideas that are misshapen, flawed, and ignore the formal principles of art. It's trying to emulate teenagers, the way they think, draw, and make art before they've been taught how to make better art. It's just raw, unfiltered expression." So all throughout the movie, you see the Turtles move with this kind of like gangly gestures, but when they fight, the animation becomes very smooth and seamless. And Rowe told Gizmodo that the film's aesthetic was greatly inspired by the patterns and colors of the late 80s and early 90s films, especially the films of Spike Lee and the underground New York hip-hop of that era. He said it was an easy way to include 80s nostalgia without having the Turtles say cowabunga over and over again.
1, 2, 3, cowabunga!
The movie starts in 2008 and we meet Baxter Stockman, voiced by Giancarlo Esposito. Stockman has developed a mutagen that mutates animals into talking humanoid versions of themselves. Now, it's important that the movie reinvented the Turtles' origin and ties it back to Baxter Stockman. Baxter is a lonely outcast who simply wants to belong, and this is just like the Turtles themselves and later their fellow mutants. The opening sequence when the TCRI troops storm the lab is filmed like a claustrophobic horror film, gave me real alien vibes. Now, in the cartoon and the comics, Stockman mutates himself into a giant fly, which in this movie has become Superfly. Now, in the comics and original cartoon, Baxter Stockman was a riff on Dr. Brumble, Jeff Goldblum's character from The Fly, that matches up his DNA with the fly's. This new adaptation seems to have established the rule that only animals can become mutated, not the other way around. Hence why Stockman is not Superfly, he is his creator, as well as the creator of a plethora of other mutated animals. Now, Superfly is voiced by the rapper Ice Cube, and he agreed to play the part as soon as he heard the name of the character because it's an homage to a classic 1970s blaxploitation film.
He's Superfly, yeah. Superfly.
These include Bebop and Rocksteady, voiced by Seth Rogen and John Cena. Now, these characters first appeared in the TMNT animated series back in 1987. Originally, they were human henchmen that were turned into a mutant warthog and rhino. And yes, Seth Rogen is, yet again, playing a warthog.
When I was a young warthog!
Now, in the comics and cartoon, Bebop and Rocksteady did the bidding of the Turtles' biggest foe, the Shredder. A little later, we'll talk about the Shredder's history, his brief cameo in the post-credits scene, and what his role will be in the sequel. Next, we've got Leatherhead, voiced by Rose Byrne. Rose Byrne and TMNT producer Seth Rogen are good friends who have starred together in movies like Neighbors and Neighbors 2, as well as the Apple TV Plus series Platonic. So I love that Rogen opted to do a gender swap on the characters of Leatherhead and brought in his Aussie friend Rose to play the mutant crocodile. Leatherhead is a classic TMNT villain going all the way back to issue 6 of the 80s comics. Next is Ray Elliott, voiced by Post Malone. Also known as Man Ray, Ray Fillet is a mutant manta ray that first appeared in the 80s comics, and like the Turtles, he is a master of the martial arts. And then, abracadabra, we've got Mondo Gecko, voiced by another longtime friend of Rogen's, Ant-Man himself, Paul Rudd.
Peoples, they got to go.
Mondo Gecko, a mutated gecko, also debuted in the 80s Turtle comics and shares a passion for skateboarding just like his half-shell friends. And then there's Genghis Frog, who first appeared in the TMNT animated series. Originally part of a group called the Punk Frogs, Genghis served as a henchman to Shredder to help him combat the Turtles, but they later became allies when they realized that Shredder is just using them.
but now we can see that he's just using us.
Genghis Frog is named after the Ravager, Genghis Khan, and his fellow punk frogs are also named after historical conquerors.
Attila the Frog, Rasputin the Mad Frog, and Napoleon Bonafrog.
Next, we've got the mutant alien bat Wingnut. Now, in the comics, Wingnut crash landed on Earth with his sidekick Screwloose, a mutant alien mosquito.
Aliens?
Yeah, more on that in a bit, it's awesome. Lastly, we've got Splinter's new lover, Scumbag. Scumbag first appeared in the comics. His original origin saw Exterminator, Garson Grunge, get exposed to mutagenic chemicals which mutated him into, well, like a giant scumbag. So as you can see, these characters all got a very different origin story in this new take on TMNT. Instead of ever being human or alien, they were all once regular animals who were experimented on with the ooze.
Ooze. It's nice, right?
Now, in the comics and shows, this ooze is property of TCRI, the Techno-Cosmic Research Institution. In the 90s live-action Turtles movies, they changed the name to TGRI, the Techno-Global Research Institution. This was to separate the Turtles and their ooze from their original cosmic alien origins.
Is that what those congressional hearings are about?
Yes. So this new Turtleverse brings back the original name, TCRI, meaning that maybe future installments will reveal the alien origins of the ooze, and we may have already been introduced to one of the Turtles' biggest alien foes. TCRI is run by Cynthia Outram, voiced by Maya Rudolph.
Enough!
Now, there's no character with that name in the comics or cartoons, but there is a race of aliens called the Outrams. In the original TMNT lore, the Outrams created the cosmic mutant ooze that created the Ninja Turtles. The most famous Outram is the TMNT villain, Krang.
Send me milk! Send me milk! I'm tired of your endless whining.
Krang was banished from his homeworld for his villainous ways and continued his evil streak on Earth, proving to be a constant thorn in the side of the Turtles. Now, Krang is depicted as basically a talking brain who encases himself in a humanoid exosuit. So, I think it's likely that Cynthia Outram will be revealed to actually be Krang inside of a humanoid suit, meaning that we'll likely get a scene like this. I mean, look at her design. The yellow suit and glasses are clearly modeled after the original Krang's bodysuit, so she's definitely got like an alien inside working her body.
Frozen!
Yeah, that came out really wrong, sorry about that. So after the origin sequence, we cut to the Turtles' modern day, and at first, they seem lifted off the page of the original comic book, portraying them as the dark crime fighters that we saw in the original comics. And remember, as we talked about in this video, those original Turtles comics were actually an homage to Frank Miller's brilliant run on Daredevil. You know, like Daredevil's opponents, the hand became the foot, etc., etc. Notice how they have white eyes under their bandanas, making them appear kind of like badass and otherworldly, until they immediately become humanized when we see their full eyes. Now, the Turtles are a cool combination of new and old designs. They have the designs of the old comic books and like the 2000s Cartoon Network series. But Mikey is shorter and has braces because he's the youngest turtle, and Donatello's wearing glasses because he does machines. But notice that they now all have belts with their initials on them, just like the classic 80s action figures. Because this is an origin story for the Turtles, they start off ignoring the reports of crime, talking about instead seeing the Knicks or watching Adele hit high notes until they settle on an outdoor movie night in Brooklyn, which is a real thing that we do all the time. The movie playing is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, about a cool, confident teenager who feels at home everywhere he goes. Exactly what the Turtles aspire to be. So, like I mentioned off the top, this is a coming-of-age movie. We get an up-close and personal look at Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael's struggle with being different and their longing to join the human world. This is a movie about acceptance, not only acceptance from others, but acceptance of yourself. I loved how this feeling of acceptance, or lack thereof, was showcased not only with Splinter and the Turtles, but also with Superfly and the other mutants as well. The juxtaposition between Superfly and Splinter's response to the human world's hatred was also done very well. Now, Splinter also told the hero's origin to the audience in this movie, just like he did in the 1990 TMNT film and to April O'Neil in the original cartoon series. During that flashback, he takes the Turtles to Times Square, where there are always people dressed in costumes, so it actually should be the one place the Turtles could fit in and belong. But instead, even the guy dressed up as SpongeBob SquarePants freaks out. SpongeBob, like the Turtles, are owned by Paramount, one of many references to Paramount properties throughout this movie. Really, my only complaint with this movie was the lack of ninja. At this year's CinemaCon, our own Colton Ogburn reported on producer Seth Rogen's main goal with this movie to bring the focus onto the teenage in the TMNT. He felt that previous installments of the franchise were missing that, but I gotta say, I wasn't crazy about the Turtles' ninja heritage seeming to take a back seat. Master Splinter was always key in teaching the boys the way of the ninja, not only how to fight, but other skills such as meditation.
That ultimate mastery comes not of the body, but of the mind.
So seeing this version of Splinter, who is played by the iconic Jackie Chan, learning everything he knows about ninjutsu from a VHS tape is a little disappointing.
Well, at least they played the Go Ninja Go song.
Yes, and that was a great reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Go Ninja, Go Ninja! And at least the VHS tape Splinter learned from were old Bruce Lee movies, one of the fun ways this movie blends animation and live action. Just before the Turtles meet April, they're playing real-life Fruit Ninja on a roof, filming themselves just like you kids do these days. They tell Mikey that his head looks like he's in the Nickelodeon show Hey Arnold, also owned by Paramount. They also mention Megamind later in the movie, which is also owned by Paramount. And then the Turtles revealed themselves by saving April O'Neil from a crime, just like they do in the comics, the movie, and the TV show.
I don't know who you are, but thanks. You're not human.
This version of April is also a teenager though. In the original animated series, April wore this yellow jumpsuit, and this new April's yellow jacket is an homage to that design. She even wants to be a reporter, like classic April. And by the way, her puking scene was hilarious. But it also showed that she, like the Ninja Turtles, is an outcast. When the Turtles storm the bad guys' hideout, they fight awkwardly at first. Reminded me a lot of Peter Parker trying to stop the ATM robbery in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now the Turtles at first decide to fight crime because it would benefit them personally. It would help them get accepted by others, which, you know what, fair play. In the original series, they were finally accepted by the city several seasons in when they defeated Shredder.
This time, I really think we've seen the last of old Shredhead.
Now, in their pencil sketches of their imagination, they even look like the original Peter Laird drawing of them from the comics. They reference the Ruffalo dinner scene in Avengers Endgame.
I'm so confused. These are confusing times.
But it's not just a throwaway reference. This is there to show how the public can eventually come to accept monsters. And later, they draw inspiration from how Mark Ruffalo improvised his lines in that scene.
Damn.
Bruce.
Listen to your mom.
April has several questions written down for the Turtles, including, can you get COVID or have you gotten COVID? Are your weapons from Hot Topic? Does the Red Turtle need therapy? Which is hilarious because in the original movie, Raphael had like a really bad attitude problem. How much toilet paper is too much for the sewers to handle? And can you be good ninjas if I can see you? And in the school, there's also a Pac-Man ghost drawn on this locker. I only mention that because I love Pac-Man. When the Turtles begin to fight the underworld, the montage is set to Yo Diggity, and it is filmed like a side-scrolling video game, like the original Ninja Turtles NES game, which I beat, by the way, without a Game Genie, and here is the video from when I filmed it.
You see that world? You see what I just did? Did you see the game I just beat? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? The Adventures of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is concluded.
Wow, is that a real video?
Sure is. And afterwards, when the Turtles get new clothes, Mikey's outfit looks a lot like the Hawaiian tourist Michelangelo action figure. Later, when Splinter wants to cheer the boys up, he gets them cutouts of some of Hollywood's Chris's. Chris Evans, Chris Pratt, and Chris Pine as Captain Kirk in the Kelvin timeline, another Paramount property. Now, another new twist to this movie is that the evil mutants aren't really evil. Like the Turtles, they just want to belong. So the bowling alley montage is set to ODB's Shimmy Shimmy Ya, and it's a great montage because it shows them getting to cut loose just like normal kids, even playing arcade games like the original badass TMNT arcade game that I almost beat at a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese when I was 10, but right when we got to Krang, the birthday cake came to the table and we had to stop.
Please let me go! Please let me go first! I'm doing something!
It remains the greatest disappointment of my life, that and when we stopped covering Willow. There's also a road chase where Bebop and Rocksteady are driving a monster truck, just like they do in the Ninja Turtles arcade game, and the Turtles eventually end up in a pizza van that looks like a precursor to the classic Turtle van from the original cartoon series. Road chases like this are actually a mainstay in the Turtles video games. Splinter confronts the other mutants and they call him Ratatouille after the Pixar movie. Now Splinter hates this because that rat and Ratatouille lived in the service of humans, and Splinter fears and hates humankind. Alright, after Superfly becomes a mutated kaiju, we go to the big showdown in Times Square, the same place where the Turtles were originally outcast by humanity. And at first, the news reports portrayed them as villains, and this is when the Turtles truly become heroes. They learn that they have to protect the people who hate and fear them.
Like the X-Men.
Yes, like the X-Men. They defeat Superfly by pulling this maneuver from the great anime series Attack on Titan. When Mikey throws the canister, he says his catchphrase, "Cowabunga," because the writers of the cartoon series in the 80s thought that all teenagers talked like surfer dudes from California, when in fact, most teenagers talk like this.
Double stamp. You can't triple stamp a double stamp, Lloyd. You can't triple stamp a double stamp. Lloyd!
In the final conflict, Leo steps up to finally lead the team. Again, we are watching an origin story for the heroes, as Leonardo embraces his future role as team leader. I actually got really emotional when the humans showed up to help the Ninja Turtles. It reminded me of one of the greatest film moments of all time.
You mess with Spidey, you mess with New York! You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
The humans helping them all ride skateboards, which of course the Turtles are known for. And finally, the Turtles face their greatest foe of all, high school.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was so scary. Thank you. It's okay.
So let's talk about that post-credits scene. In the aftermath of the Turtles breaking out of TCRI's captivity, we see Cynthia Outram's plan to recapture the Turtles and their mutant brothers and sisters, using none other than the Turtles' greatest foe, the Shredder. Shredder, also known as Orokusaki, is the leader of the ninja clan known as the Foot. So the Shredder's origins have been slightly different in various iterations of the TMNT story, but here's the gist of it. Orokusaki of Japan is very talented in the martial arts. His origin is usually intertwined with Master Splinter's origins as well. And like I mentioned earlier, they took a really different approach to Splinter in this film. In TMNT lore, there is a character by the name of Hamato Yoshi. Now, in some versions, Hamato is Splinter's owner before he was mutated, but in others, Hamato Yoshi is Splinter and he himself was mutated into a rat. Now, like in the 90s movies, Mutant Mayhem's version of Splinter has always been a rat, and I prefer that.
I just think they're neat.
But what this version of the story has seemingly omitted is that Splinter was once owned by a ninjutsu master. In the version of the story where Splinter was Hamato Yoshi's pet rat, we see the Shredder kill his master. Shredder and Splinter having history that dates back to even before the Turtles are even born has always been very interesting lore. So I'm really hoping that in the next movie, Shredder isn't just some random new character, but that they find a way to connect his origin with Splinter's. And if we're right about Cynthia Outram being the alien villain Krang, it'll be awesome to see a change of pace with Shredder's role in these movies. Usually, Shredder is the big bad, lurking in the shadows and pulling the strings, but this post-credit scene implies that this time around, Shredder will be the muscle doing the bidding of another Turtle villain, and we can't wait because guys, Shredder is an absolute badass. I mean, he beat Batman. So I think the sequel is going to push the Turtles to their limit. While the giant mutated Superfly may have given them some trouble, they've never been bested in the ways of the ninja.
Ninja?
Shredder is definitely going to come in and show the Turtles what real combat looks like and what real heartache feels like.
Heartache?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think Splinter's gonna die.
No!
These Turtles still have a lot of growing up to do, and a key part of growing up is learning about loss.
But what is grief, if not love? Persevering.
And if you look back on the different iterations of the Ninja Turtles, the death of Master Splinter has happened several times, usually at the hands of Shredder. Splinter's death is a pivotal moment for the Turtles in their journey to becoming the heroes that we know them to be. To put it in Spider-Verse terms, the death of Master Splinter is sort of like a canon event. So I think it's very likely that the sequel to Mutant Mayhem will show the Turtles living it up and enjoying their new lives in the human world, only to have their worlds crushed with the arrival of Shredder. My guess is we'll see the Turtles go to their first boy-girl party or something like that, even though they had prior plans with Splinter to eat pizza and watch a movie. And when they arrive back home, they'll find their master, their father, barely clinging to life, along with a message from the Shredder telling the Turtles that they're next.
You're next! You're next! You're next! You're next!
Jeez, this video got really depressing.
Cowabunga?
Cowabunga, dude!
High five. So that's our breakdown for TMNT Mutant Mayhem and our thoughts on the sequel to come. Let me know what you thought of Mutant Mayhem down in the comments below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.